Hey guys, I'm Todd. Welcome to Personal Development Hacks. We've got another great show for you guys tonight. We've got a special guest, so settle in and we're gonna have a little bit of fun just talking about life and stuff like that in general. So, all right, so Personal Development Hacks, we focus mainly on helping people just do what they inspires them to do. So, and our special guest for tonight is Julia. There you are. Julia. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So, Julia, for the audience and those that don't know who you are or anything like that, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're focused on.
Yeah, cool. So my name's Julia Trask. I'm a confidence coach from Toowoomba in Queensland, Australia. And I predominantly help women who are high performers. So people who overthink, people please, want to be really service-minded towards others, prioritize themselves so that they can go from feeling self-conscious to seriously confident. And I've been doing it for 8 years this year. Also motivational speaker and author, but mainly my key focus is on helping people to have more happiness and peace through loving and accepting themselves and doing the deep work on that. So it brings me a lot of joy. I'm like a kid in a candy store when people have their transformations because I know how life-changing it is. And I also get dorkily excited the moment just before it happens too. So just because I'm Australian doesn't mean I don't serve people across the world. I've actually helped people in 14 countries to date. And I'm trying to, I wouldn't say go for world domination, but I'm trying to...
It's fine. Go ahead and say it. You are. That's fine with me.
I'm trying to help people as many places I can across the world because I think it really will help us to connect with our families, our peers, our wider communities, and then across countries as well when we prioritize this in our work. So I'm very passionate about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, very good. One thing you said there that just it caught my attention because I don't know, I was going through this and it was like the difference between energy takers and energy givers. And I think unfortunately a lot of people, like what you were talking about, they're high performing women in your case that are people pleasers and they think they're giving energy, but they're not. They're actually taking energy because they spend so much time and effort and energy on making everyone else happy, or at least that they're actually just draining all of their energy on that instead of on what they're good at, which is, you know, being high performer and a driver and stuff like that. Would you agree with that? Or
100%. I think there's two challenges for women. The first is that genetically we want to be the caretakers in our families and even in our relationships if we don't have kids. And so that tends to be that we put ourselves on the back foot in terms of self-prioritization. And we have this weird story in our head that really limits us, that love is self-sacrifice, you know. So we just kind of keep doing it and wondering why we don't get back what we would like, or we feel like we're asking for too much, or we neglect ourselves. And that's because of that story is running our actions all the time. So for a lot of women, we really have to work on changing that. You can only give energy when you've actually got the energy to give. Like, otherwise you're half-assing it, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's really, really important place that we need to change in the mindset, first of all. And it does happen for some men as well. And I increasingly get men interested in my services as well too. I guess it's really dependent on what that family relationship has been like and the conditioning, because they may have been put into a place where they feel less masculine by the way they've been treated by their parents. So they can still have some of those same things. But yeah, it's definitely a key limiting belief for sure.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, it's one of those things, just unfortunately how men and women evolved over God knows how many thousands of years. You know, the guy, you know, man was the hunter and the, you know, woman was at home cooking and whatever. And it's like that's not the world we live in anymore. And yet I still think, like what you said, some of those limiting beliefs are still there, that women can't, they just feel that if they step up to the plate to be a driver and to, to not be a people pleaser and stuff like that, that they're stepping above, or stepping outside of themselves, where if it doesn't matter male or female, if you're a driver and you're a go-getter, that's who you are. And I think you're doing a huge disservice to not only yourself, but your friends, your family, your loved ones, all involved, if you don't feel that you can represent your true self in any and all situations. And I think you're right. Like, self-limiting beliefs, just in general, I don't think that's necessarily like a male or a female specific. I don't know. Is that a dingo?
They're not male or female specific. I'm just getting like an army chopper go over my head right now,
yeah,
which is perfect for a recording. And I can feel the windows shaking a little bit. So I apologize for that. That's not a normal occurrence.
Hey, you know what? We're here recording. It's fine. We're real. If there's ever been an example of the two people that you're watching right now are real people, that was it.
That's it. Yeah, so I think the limiting beliefs really, there are none for like male or female, so to speak. However, I guess there are some that are more hardwired into men and women based on the way that, in part, I dare say, genetics, just our makeup is. So with women being more tending to be more in feminine energy, more emotional than men, and men really are hardwired about giving people what they need and being the provider. And no matter how much society changes, I don't think that's going to change until we change a relationship with what that looks like. There are men out there that are the stay-at-home dads and that are not bringing in the most amount of money. But years ago, that was a completely different story. But it still hasn't changed because the limiting beliefs are generational. How that impacts. So, when a man loses his job, for example, that impacts him in so many ways because he feels like he's the one that's meant to protect and look after the family. And so I guess the different parts of our identity from men to women impact our self-esteem differently. Mm-hmm. So in some ways that does define those limiting beliefs, but not always. There's a lot of common ones about, children should be seen and not heard, or do as you're told and don't question. And, if you've come from a certain background, you can't have these things, or you won't have these things, or it's just not on the cards for us. Those kinds of things are universal, and it literally doesn't matter what country you live in on the planet. They just seem to be ingrained just in a different language or a different way of saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's not necessarily that it's genetic. I think it's generational is the better way to look at it. It's that, great-grandfather and great-grandmother, they had a certain relationship, and granted, that could have been the, early 1900s or whatever, and society just in general was a different way than it is today. But they taught your grandparents, and regardless of what they said, they learned from watching. Kids learn from watching, and they see how it happens. And so then when they become adults and they have kids, they're ingrained on, this is what my mom and dad did. And so they act the same way, and it gets passed down and passed down. And that's the cycle that needs to break, I think, is more and more kids need to just be exposed to like equal relationships, or the mom kicks butt and she makes money, and dad kicks butt because he makes some great eggs every morning, and it's they need to be exposed to that more through actions than through words. You can tell a kid 1,000 times not to do something. They're still going to touch the hot stove, right? But if you show them, unfortunately, you show them like how to do it and you don't act that way, then they learn from behavior. Because I was talking to someone a few days ago that was like, your ages 0 through 7 are all developmental.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're learning the most. That's where you're exposed and you're just taking all this stuff in like a sponge. And then you get to, past that 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 years old. And those things have now become ingrained in you. And because you've seen enough of them, and during your development years, that's what you saw when your brain was figuring out, like, how to put one foot in front of the left and, all that stuff. So I think that's really between men and women, that's the cycle that needs to break, is that it's no longer a role specific based on gender.
Mm-hmm.
It's a role specific based on the relationship, and every relationship is unique, and you just have to, if you're a man and you want to be that, the breadwinner and stuff like that, then you don't want to go find a woman that wants the same thing, because then you're going to be combating the whole time, unless you can find that common ground of supporting each other and realizing that, look, I'm making 200, you're making 200. If we can find a way to coexist with our schedules and our drive, that's 400, instead of you go home and you stay with the kids, or you do this and you stay with the kids. And I think it's, that has to become ingrained just as a society, that it's not role specific anymore. Men and women can have the same jobs, and be it stay at home or be it CEOs of companies, whatever it is. But, you don't have to fall into line with, what you've learned or what anything's like growing up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the most thought-provoking questions that people always say to me, oh, I have to think about that for a while, is when I say to them, okay, so you've been an adult, well, in Australia since you're 18, technically since you're like 21 in the States. But, do you on your 18th or 21st birthday say to yourself, so what are my values that I have as an adult, and how do I want to live? Has the way that I've been living in the past worked for me, or is it not the way I want to be doing things?
Right.
And I think that honestly, most people haven't thought about that. I've had clients in their 40s, some even older, who are like, I didn't want to do this crap for 20 years. I wanted to live a different way, but they still felt like they were that child and their parents were their parents, and they never broke away from even just that role in their life. And so they hadn't actually asked themselves, what do I want for me?
Yeah. And that's one thing that we talk about all the time on this show, is like people that maybe have been 20 years into a successful career and they are a high achiever. But if you take them off to the side and you ask them, that's the answer they give. I didn't want to do this for this long. And they aspire and they have ambitions to do other things with their life, be it travel or be it live someplace else or something like that. And ultimately they're starting to feel stuck. Like they're just, I got to do this because of what I'm paid or my position or my responsibilities. And they feel stuck and kind of trapped in to the life that they've kind of followed. And, one of the things I've said is you don't need permission at any age or any situation to retool yourself. If you wake up one day and, man or woman, and you're 20 years into a career, right? And so say you're 45 or whatever, and you just wake up that one day and you're like, I can't believe I've been doing this long. You don't need to ask anyone's permission to be like, and I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah. I'm gonna do something else, or I'm gonna find a different way, or I need to put a plan together to where I can get to what my 7-year-old self thought life was going to be, because that's it's always a great comparison. Is like, if you had your 6 or 7-year-old self, you know, there's no limits on their life at that age, right?
Yeah.
There's no ceilings. There's nothing they can't do. And granted, yes, I know all 7-year-olds want to be, firemen or whatever, pilots, and, whatever, but there's no limits. And so if they were to think about their lives, they were traveling and doing all this cool stuff. And if you're 45 and you look at your 6-year-old version of yourself, are they going to come up to you and say, yeah, you're living the life that I thought? Or are they going to go look at you and go, what are you doing? Because I think the problem with society is a lot of people, if they actually thought about it, that version of themselves is going to look at them and go, what are we doing? Like, you've been doing this for how long and you're not happy? So why are you doing it? And it takes courage, and it takes, some faith to break out of, especially like you said, like a 20-year like cycle of, I built my career throughout, and I finally get to this point, or I'm at this point where I'm respected, I'm well paid, I'm a high achiever, I'm always driving for more, and looking at it and saying, and I'm not happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, it's like a combination of things. I mean, I've gone into schools and talked to kids about it. They are thinking about their career as the thing that they do for their life, which is an old way of thinking as well. I remember finishing high school, and I was told by a teacher, you'll probably change your career 6 times. And, a lot of the conversations around what your career is going to be, people think it is cemented in. Like, I've had a stint where I was just an author for a while I lived in the UK. I've been a university tutor, a football coach, soccer coach, sorry, a teacher, a behavior intervention specialist, and a coach. There's so many things. Like, I've well gone beyond my 6.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting in thinking about it, and this is what I tell people all the time too, is when you live out of your values and you really ask yourself what matters to me and how I want to live my life, it all ends up circling back in some career form or something that just is an extension of those values. Mm-hmm. So, if I'm coaching with business women or men, I don't feel like it's too detached from where I'm teaching teenage kids how to make their career choices or feel more confident about what they're doing. It's all still about seeing people being happy, healthy, and more successful, which is the tagline for my business. Yeah. It's just shape shifted into something else. But I guess the other part of it too is, especially in a group of high performers, you'll tend to find that some of them are wanting to know what's their next thing they're doing, what's the next thing that they're doing. And that means that there's sometimes less introspection about, am I actually still happy with what I'm doing, And I think for some people, COVID helped with that process. And for others, it was still about pushing and not really stopping and asking. So I think we have to build in moments of time throughout our week where we're asking ourselves, is this still lighting me up? Is it still making me happy?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Because, I mean, regardless of what you're doing for a living or for your adult life, you do have to do that. Like once a month or something like that. And just ask yourself that question. Am I happy with where I'm at in life right now? And as soon as that doubt starts to come in, that's when you need to start really looking at doing something else, not after it crushes you. And now you're dealing with all the pain of, God, I was in this too long, Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, gone are the days of like our grandparents and even our parents, where it was go to high school, go to college, get a degree, get a job at a company in your degree, work there for 35 years, get your gold watch and your 401k, and then go have fun. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to wait until I'm 65 to have fun or to enjoy the fruits of my labor. I want to do that now. And
Yeah.
because now is when you can really enjoy it. And God, I just had a terrible vision. Like, my parents walking on the beach and they got socks and like water shoes on. And I'm like, no, don't do that. That's you're past it. That's fine. You're late to it. But, it's having the introspection and, like you said, with your core values, if you've got your core values like this, every decision that you make that has any impact on your life or your family or whatever, you have to run through that set of core values to make
Yeah.
sure that it agrees with them. Because the second that you make a decision to do something or to act on something or anything that is outside of your core values, you're not going to be happy. It might be the quick fix or something like that, but in the end, you're going to make yourself more miserable than happy because it's disagreeing with what you value as most important to yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's actually when the doubt creeps in. The doubt is there as like a positive thing to remind you, is this actually what my path should be? Does it actually connect with the way that I want to live my life?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's like a lot of emotions. People feel as though they are negative, but they're all reminding us, hey, Jules, are you doing what you should be doing right now? Like, I don't even like saying the word should, but is this in alignment with who you want to be? And that's where a lot of people struggle with confidence, because they keep making those steps thinking, well, maybe I will just throw caution to the wind and not worry about it too much. But all of the fear and the doubt and that comes from not actually really considering, is this actually me?
Right.
And just backing ourselves. And I think classically people that start a business are famous for this, if you will, because you can be safe and you can also throw caution to the wind and just put 100% of everything you've got into your business. Well, that's fine for you, if that's what you want to do, but we all need to take advice with a grain of salt, which is why I like coaching, because I help people find their answers as opposed to tell them what to do, which I feel means they're going to have greater success because they own what those decisions are, but also they really think about it a longer term, to actually connect with whether it's going to be the right thing for them.
Yeah. And I was going to just very quickly, the worst advice that you will ever take if you're going to start a new business or anything that you're going to do that's new, the worst advice that you're going to be able to take is from your friends, family, and loved ones. Don't listen to them, because they're all supportive, and they're going to tell you everything that's wrong with your idea. That's where you need to get out of yourself and ask someone like you, like me, a business coach or a mentor or something, and get an unbiased opinion on it. Someone that, yeah, they care about you, but their job is to provide an unbiased opinion. Whereas your parents and your family, they have no job description in there that's like unbiased. It's like they love you regardless. And their parents are famous for it. Mine were, when I was like, I gotta do something else. Like I can't sit in an office. I just can't do it. And I got every precautionary, oh well, there's this and there's this and there's this. And I was, fortunately for me, and I do count myself as fortunate, is I didn't listen to my parents. And I was like, yeah, I understand, and I'm going to look to you for some guidance on certain things, but not on the general scale of it. It's like, both of us, we're in this to help people, and the greatest thing that either of us can do is have an impact on just as much of society as we can to get them moving in the right direction. You know, it's just, if we can talk to 100 people, 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, whatever, and have an impact enough to where they not want to, but they start making actual progress in their own lives. That,
Yeah.
I mean, that speaks volumes to obviously their work, and then us being able to help them see that they have that in themselves the whole time. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's because all we do is nudge. You know, it's like we give opinions and we nudge. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
you know, it's, you know, I mean, I'm famous for telling people, yeah, that's, you know, I've told people just flat out, that's great. You're talking about a lot, and that's not good, because now you're just talking about it. You got to go do
Yeah.
something about it. So next week when we're here, I don't want to hear what you're going to do. I want to hear what you did, because,
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to do anything if all you're doing is saying, well, when the seasons change, I'll be ready for this, or, you know, when I hit a certain fitness level, then I'll do this. It's like, I don't project what you're going to do, because you're not. Do it. Like, hang up the phone and go do it.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. The other thing I was thinking of when you were speaking about earlier is asking other people for advice. Is I think about like when, and it's classic for women, you'll put an outfit on at a store and you'll say to your friends, do I look good in this? What do you think? Well, as soon as we ask that question, we literally put our confidence level in the hands of the confidence level of the other person. So I can like distinctly remember going and trying something on. I freaking loved how it felt. But I said to one of my friends, who was a bit of a bigger girl, to be honest, what do you think? And she was just flat out, it looks horrible. It's terrible. You look like a skank. You should get it off. And I was so defeated. And I'm like, dang it, she's meant to be my friend. Why did I even ask her? But
Right.
from her frame of mind, without her, because no one's ever going to say, dang, you look good in that. And now, well, not too many people will say, geez, you look really good at that. I'm feeling self-conscious. I'm going to tell you it looks terrible. But that's what's going on in their head, right?
Oh, yeah. They've got their own opinions, and they're like, God, you look really good. Actually, you look better than I do. That looks bad. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's where your confidence comes in, because what's the old saying? Like, it's not the clothes that you wear, it's how you wear them.
Yeah.
You know, and that just speaks volumes to, if you're confident what you got on, you're going to look fantastic, you know, no matter what it is, you know. And it's funny, it's just asking people, because immediately, as soon as you ask people, you're absolutely right. Their own biases come straight through. And, you know, if you're listening for it, you'll hear it just right off the bat, you know, especially when you're sitting there looking in the mirror and going, yeah, I got it. And then you go out there and she's like, that looks so bad. And you're like, you know, that's where you kind of look and go, you mean I look better than you? Okay, I got it. Yeah, I'm getting this.
The funny thing is, I think exactly the same thing happens in our careers. You know, we go to someone who maybe is not going to take the plunge to start a business, or is not going to break the mold from their family, and they're going to get hit with whatever that person feels is the right thing to do, that they're comfortable with thinking, and they will project that onto us. So we have to be really intentional about what, I guess it goes back to what we were talking about at the start, about what energy we absorb. Like, are these people actually qualified to help us on it? You know, and I've actually said to my parents straight out, I love you dearly, but you guys don't have an investment. You have a house that you own, don't have any debt, but you don't have an investment. You've not taken a risk into a business. So you can tell me things, but I'll probably say thank you, and that will be it. Doesn't mean I don't love you, but you just don't know how the inner workings of it. So yeah, our environment is really, really important, I think. And our intention about who we're asking questions to is really, really key to making sure that we look after ourselves as well.
Well, yeah, I completely agree with you, and it's you know it's I mean I what you just said about your parents and they own their house and they have no debt and that's great, but like they haven't invested or started a business, and so if they say something, you're going to take it with a that's I love you too, but I'm going to do what I know how to do, and you just live in your unowed on house or whatever. But I almost equate it to a little bit of like college. um, Unfortunately, education is so revered, especially in the States, but you take all the like I had a business I have a business major, right? But I
Mhm.
going through college, I don't even know if there was maybe one of my professors that was one of my business professors that actually started a business on his own. The rest
Yeah.
of them were teaching out of a textbook and just testing on that. And it's like that's that does no good. You got to ask someone that's been there. And the greatest thing about it is if you're fortunate enough or you're able to talk to some of these really just successful people, and it doesn't have to be wealth, it's just they're successful. And you talk to them and about like, hey, you're doing really good. Like, how did you get there? Those really successful people are going to be the first ones to go, here's the book of how I did it. Take it and
Yeah.
go. Because they're about passing that down, and there's no secrets to it, and it's almost a sense of pride to them to they get asked their opinion and they are more than willing to share, like, here was my playbook. Now, I'm not saying this because it's right or wrong. I'm saying this because this is what I did, and here's the mistakes that I made. So I'm giving this to you. Do with it what you will, but just don't make the same mistakes that I made. Follow some of the stuff that I was successful with, and make your own way. Um,
Yeah.
so it's I think it's a little bit, we tend to ask the wrong people for opinions about the wrong stuff, I think, in general.
Yeah. And it is a bit of a balance too, because I think like general, not necessarily about our goals, but just like connecting with people, learning about different people. We do need different people in our circle.
Oh yeah.
We also need to be cognizant of the fact that they might trigger us with stuff that we don't like, from time to time. It's really funny. Like I've traveled 27 countries, so I just dipped my toe in the ocean. Really, I got so much more to do, but through traveling countries, I know that my level for compassion for other people is so much greater than it was if I stayed in my own backyard.
Right.
And but I still meet people on a regular basis that have no desire to travel, which just seems like an alien planet to me. But yeah, but they have no desire, or it's just not a sort of like a priority for them. And so there's just these sort of like comments sometimes about people that are different or from different countries. The town that I'm in, we're very well known for being great for serving refugee community. So I think it's one of the top two places in Australia that's really good at helping refugees embed into Australian culture, which is really awesome. But we have quite a conservative town. So for a lot of people, they're really challenged by that, but they also won't have a conversation. So on the personal development side of, becoming more compassionate ourselves, we also need to grow, in my opinion, we need to grow that relationship with other people that can teach us how we can actually be better. Countries I've gone to, in Italy, for example, the way people have dinner with each other in Italy is so much more family orientated than in Australia.
Oh yeah.
And when you absorb it and you take it in, you're like, wow, I probably should be noticing that a little bit more. And I've had people from completely different cultures, religions. They're asking questions because they want to know, to understand. It's not like an ego thing at all. It's just wanting to understand. And I think we definitely need that to teach us more about ourselves and make us more connected in general too.
Yeah, it's just it's I mean, for me, it's like it's human nature to be inquisitive and to be curious. And the biggest asset that anybody can really acquire in life is just like knowledge of other people and knowledge of different ways and learning. And it's, I mean, God, I got a whole cabinet full of books and I'm just reading through them. And it's like, yeah, you're not going to digest every single book and be like, okay, I got 100% of this, put it away, and then read the next one. I got 100% of this. But you'll learn stuff in everything that you read, everything that you experience. Like you said, noticing that people in Italy, that family dinner is a like can't miss event. Whereas most areas, it's like, you're throwing a hot dog at a kid as he's leaving the house, being like, "You got to eat something," Not that I've done that, but it's. But you take that from that, and you kind of equate, and then if you take it a step further, and you start thinking about how much stronger those relationships are because they have that time together. It's dedicated, it's can't miss, it's every Sunday or whatever. And how much better those relationships are because there are no such thing as on the surface conversations at those dinners or those gatherings. Like they truly are asking really good, deep, they want to know people more than just like what you look like or, the on the surface, how you doing? I'm doing good. And that's the last question. They're talking. And I think a lot of, at least in the US, like a lot of that gets missed because people become so busy and, and they think that I'm working hard and, this is my schedule right now. It's like, man, but your family is your priority and they need to be. And you've got to set aside at least half hour, 45 minutes to actually get to know the other members of your family, especially if you got younger kids. I mean, they're going through God knows what, growing up and hormones going crazy and, friends saying this and that. And, you get to know them and you get to talk to them and you find out like really why it's bothering them. Like you're asking them, why does it bother you? And, it takes a little bit, especially if you're like, oh God, we haven't been doing that. Now we got to start doing that. It'll take a little bit to break the ice, but the best guidance I can give anyone is like, if that's where you're going to start, then the first time you sit down and you and your spouse or whatever, you be the first to start sharing information and show your kids that it's okay. We're family. Like there's no secrets. There's, this is why this is important. This is why you're important. This is why she's important or whatever. And so sharing actually shows a greater deal of caring and compassion for other people than it does than asking questions. Like if you're at that Italian dinner and you're like, I'm Julia, I'm from Australia, and this is what, I'm doing, and this is what I've been through, and this is all the countries I've been to, and I love the fact because I saw this, and all of a sudden it's like you're going to start getting 15 more questions, but it's not because they're pressing you for information, it's because they're just curious. They just want to know, like, some of them are probably like, I've never been to Australia. What's that like? I heard there's kangaroos. Is there really dingoes down there? I don't know. I heard a thing. Like that.
Well, I hope you didn't hear that we had somebody attacked by dingoes just last week.
No. Showing my age a little, just an old Seinfeld reference. But no.
We don't put shrimps on the barbie. I can tell you that.
Oh God. And you don't drink Foster's. I know that too.
Just
Oh,
the yeah, but it's there is honestly so much to unpack, and I think that's the thing is when people individually like want to improve their life, improve their confidence, and there's a lot to unpack, and it can feel really overwhelming. But it's just about doing one step at a time, and like I said before, just really being connected to what those values are and the vision that you have, so that you don't feel like you are becoming your own energy drain.
yeah.
And I think that the perfect time to suss out where you're sort of at with things is anytime you do get together with your family. You know, if you've got Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or any other celebrations, you know, depending on where you live in the world, what are the things that happen between you and your family members that sort of like make you feel frustrated or angry or sad, and then tap into what is the actual beginnings of those feelings, or what can you do about it, or is it that the way that you're feeling about that interaction because there's nothing being done about it for a while.
Right. Yeah, and
So,
it's not calling someone out. It's just being honest about how someone's actions or words are impacting you, because they might not know. You know, they just may do it because it's natural or that's what their parents did, but it's having a different impact on us as individuals. And if we don't share that back and be like, this is how this is affecting me, the fact that you're saying this or doing this, and like I either, it's not appreciated, or I feel, alone when you say stuff like that, they might automatically be like, holy crap, like I did not realize that. I apologize. You're going to have plenty of families that are going to be like, well, suck it up and deal with it, but that's fine. We can't fix everything at once, but if you don't I can guarantee you one thing: if you don't say anything, it's going to continue. And you're going to keep feeling every time that dinner comes up, you're going to be anxious going into it because it's going to come up. Someone's going to say something, and immediately a time that should be a celebration for you turns into a frustrating event, and you start planning like, well, Christmas is coming up in 3 weeks. I'm sure we got something else we can find to do that night, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to like asking people in social settings, like not at that time, but social settings or family gatherings, like, how did you remember that event? I did this with my siblings a few years ago now, and we were talking about exactly the same event, but we had 3 different versions of what's going on. And I think it's a really good, I guess, analogy for the way people perceive the world and how we need to be mindful of those. But also as a super powerful reminder that just because we have viewed it from sort of our own lens doesn't mean that's actually what happened in that situation. And
Right.
we have the ability to have that like fluidity in our mind to change our connection to those things. So, for the families, and it's still certainly over here, very common to hear people just say, suck it up, changing what that is, that's not necessarily maybe somebody being nasty to you. It's maybe somebody trying to teach you resilience, but they don't know how to use the words to get you to understand that. Or there's a time aspect to it. And we just need to get on with things, so we're not denying you, try not to, so there's lots of different ways to view things. And I think when we see that there's more than one of those ways, then they're more than just the way that we see it ourselves, we can actually have quite a lot of healing.
Yeah.
When we do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So just real quick, guys, go to project9life.com. So if you're at that stage where you want to retool yourself, you want to figure something else out, you're not happy with your current life, and you truly want to get back to pursuing your life dreams, living your best life, just click there, and go to the website. It'll schedule you for a free phone call, and we'll talk about where you are, where you want to be, and how we can help you out to get there. So, and then for Julia,
Yeah, guys.
I'll let you read it. I'm fine. Yeah.
So this is my Facebook page, Magnetic Confidence. You can check out any of my content. But in particular, if you are trying to establish what your values are and you want to have a complimentary one-on-one chat with me, then you just need to go to that Facebook page and click sign up, and then we'll have a free chat. And that can start you on the process of some of the things we've been talking about here.
Cool. Very good. So with your clientele, let's just kind of go back to this a little bit. With your clientele, like you said, they're mainly female, mainly high achievers, and there's something else going on. They're not happy or stuff like that. So are you finding that you're getting them because they're not at the precipice yet, but they see it coming? Are they at the precipice and they're about to fall and then you see them? Or have they already fallen and then they're like, I need help because I'm tumbling at this point?
Yeah, good question. So every single one of my clients, they have invested anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 or more in their own personal development already. So they've generally tried something that has been stock standard, and they're stuck, or they've hit their biggest low. And I think there's a big difference between being at your absolute rock bottom and just feeling stuck.
Right.
So that makes up the majority, like I would say 80% of my clientele. And then you have some people who they've done the work. They may have even worked with me before or somebody else, but they want to maintain where they're at so they don't get back to feeling stuck. So that's something that I would hope every client gets to, but not necessarily does that happen all the time for a variety of reasons. Finances is one of them, for example. But generally speaking, once we start doing the work, and I talk about systems of success, we embed ways of making sure that they are looking after themselves, reconnecting with their values again. And I use my 3-part framework to do that. Reflect, refresh, and revive, so that they know that I've got to reflect on what is my thinking that's going on, how happy am I feeling, is there a way I can change it to be more empowering, and what am I doing in the revive phase, that's a regular self-care practice that actually doesn't get me bogged down in wanting to do the personal development work in the first place.
Yeah, and it's it's unfortunate because general populace, it's either they don't know that coaches exist that deal with specifically what they're going through, or they're facing some stigma that says, well, you don't need to go and pay someone to tell you this. I'll tell you right now. And then Joe Bob, your cousin, is giving you life advice or whatever. But the most successful people in the world, again, doesn't matter wealth or whatever, but successful people, they all have coaches. Like you said, a lot of your clients have spent, 5 and 6 figures on coaching. And a lot of these people, they have more than one. And the purpose of that coach is maybe it's to help them with a specific thing that they're going through, or they need some guidance, or sometimes they have a coach who is just there because they think the complete opposite of them, and they want a different perspective. And so they'll have that conversation to say, this is what I'm thinking and why. And the coach may be like, okay, this is how I would approach it and why. And then they talk about that. And it's just different perspectives, because that's in the end, that's what we're giving, is we're unbiased third-party people who, we absolutely care about your development. That's if we didn't help people develop and actually make progress, then, we're not doing this for a living. But it's just different perspectives and different methodologies based on our experience, on the people that we know, the people that we've seen, and just sharing those experiences with people to be able to help them find the best route for themselves. And that's truly what it is, because it's not a, here, do this and take this and fill this out and you're good. It's really like finding a way for each individual to put the work in to find their own way, but with support, with guidance, with coaching, with, like you said, with all that stuff that we provide.
Yeah. And I think like one of the first things I say to clients is you've paid for something that's been generic. So it's not personalized to you. It can't already help you from the get-go. If you've paid $5,000 for a generic thing, you've wasted your money in part, because that's $5,000 for everyone. It's like throwing a spaghetti at the wall at 20 different people, all with different experiences. It's not going to move you forward as much. It'll still make some progress, but it won't be the same. But also stop looking at your successes you've had in the past or failures and thinking, well, I failed at this because I didn't turn up for myself, or I failed at this because of this, and start thinking about, one, you had the guts to actually try something. And just because something didn't work once doesn't mean that it's not going to work again. Because you've been given something generic, it's highly likely that you haven't changed your mindset. You're just doing mere habits. That's all people are teaching you and asking you to pay them a bucket ton for.
Yeah,
and
you're right about, and I'll say this, like you're saying, like, if you do go this and you fail at it, but don't look at it as a failure. It's just, you learned your lesson, right? Like you learned that a generic program or a way that you tried something in the past doesn't work for you, and you learn from it. So just don't make the same mistake again, and you course correct and you find a better way. You find a better person. That's one of the reasons that I know both you and I offer like a free complimentary first session, is I want to get to know someone at least enough to be able to understand where they're coming from, what they want, knowing what I have to offer. Because if what they want or what their objective is, my program is not going to help, I'm not even going to ask them to move forward with the program. It's just, I'm going to be like, hey, look, you need to find this person, or here's Julia's contact and go contact her, or whatever. Because in the end, it's like, I don't sleep at night if I took someone's money and then knowing from day one, this is not going to work for them.
Yeah.
It does no one any good. So.
And I'm exactly the same. I will say to people in this regard, because some people think that a coach does what a psychologist does, which, there are some overlaps. But when it comes to dealing with trauma in particular, you need a psychologist or a counselor, Yeah. So I happily say to people, these are people I know in my circle. You need to go to them. I can't in good conscience take it from you. And also, I think when a business owner does that, it showcases how much they have a growth mindset, because there's enough money to go around, there's enough work. And at the end of the day, like you've shared, our goal is to help people feel better about themselves. So why would we put a barrier in their way to doing that?
Right. Yeah. And that's where you have that conversation. Like you said, look, you're going through some deep seated trauma and you need a psychologist, right? Or you need a grief counselor or something. When you're done with that and you feel that you've gotten to a stage where that's in your past, you understand it and whatever, then come back and then we can concentrate on moving forward. But I think for the point, like neither of our programs or what we talk about or what we offer has anything to do with dealing with stuff that happened in your past. It's understanding it, but mainly it's about, okay, that's what's motivating you. That's what your inspiration is X, Y, and Z. Let's use that to move forward, not to sit on a couch and talk about whatever for however long. So.
And that's what people find empowering about coaching, not scratching our own wounds. We're, starting from a place we want to go fresh and focusing on more present and then a little bit further into the future so don't get overwhelmed. So, it's much more empowering.
Yep. All right, Julia, we've got about 30 seconds left, so I will let you wrap up and kick us out of here.
So thank you so much for letting me have the opportunity to talk to your community. Thanks, Todd. I really appreciate it. I love connecting with people. So if you would like to connect with me, just jump on that Facebook. Otherwise, I hope that you really prioritize living a life where you feel happy, healthy, and successful out of those values. And again, I really appreciate the moment, and apparently I'm going to leave you with a bit of an Army helicopter again. Just for
that's fine. I'm leaving out of here with a thunderstorm outside. So thanks guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.